All right, let's go to your next data point here, Ray. We're going to stick on kind of the mercurial wide receiver alley here for this one.
Yeah, can we just have a simple conversation about a breakout happening maybe in Denver with the second-year wide receiver that a lot of people liked during the draft process, former teammate of the quarterback, Troy Franklin versus Courtland Sutton. Is this breakout real, Matt Harmon? Over the past couple of weeks, Troy Franklin's usage has started to surge. You look at him versus Courtland Sutton, 22 targets, 21.5% share for Franklin versus 19 for Courtland Sutton. Air yards in favor of Troy Franklin. Receptions and touchdowns clearly in favor of Troy Franklin. Now, Courtland Sutton did have one clank off his hands in the end zone this past Sunday versus Dallas, and he had another one called back. So this is not more doom and gloom Courtland Sutton, but Troy Franklin brings a different element of speed and dynamism to this offense for Bo Nix, who's gotten it together the past couple of weeks, right? He's scoring a lot of fantasy points. He had a QB1 finish, another top 8 quarterback finish on the week for Bo Nix. This is good for Bo Nix, and I believe the Denver Broncos right now are searching for some help at the tight end spot, which suggests they're not happy with what they're getting currently, the deployment, the health, all of that stuff. But right here, right now, Franklin is a guy. I don't think he's got a high start rate. Everyone started Courtland Sutton, but are we getting to a point where we're feeling more confident that Troy Franklin can be deployed? I mean, I'll be honest, we're starting Kayshon Boutte every single week, right? We're rolling him out there, and we kind of know what his role is. Franklin does a little more in his offense than Boutte's asked to do in New England. I'm just looking at what these players, and you can see on the screen right here, the last 2 weeks, Troy Franklin's usage, he's producing more than Courtland Sutton, and they're used relatively the same amount. Do you think there's a chance that this breakout is happening before us right now with Troy Franklin in Denver, Matt?
I think so. I like what I've seen from Troy Franklin so far, and going back to that Colts game when he first kind of had his breakout moment this season, they were using him in the slot. They were using him on some design touches, which is still kind of the case. These last 3 weeks, he has been a slot-heavy player for this team. Since week 6, he's run 46.5% of his snaps from the slot. He's kind of alternating with Pat Bryant, who is 54.8% from the slot, but Franklin is just playing a lot more than Bryant. 77% route participation, 52% for Bryant, but they kind of complement each other well a little bit. Like Pat Bryant's the better blocker. He's the bigger, more physical player. He's kind of that big slot. Franklin is the smaller. I mean, he's not short. He's actually just kind of thin. He's skinny. Right. So he's kind of like the speed slot guy. But in this stretch of games, 3 touchdowns for Franklin. That's why the fantasy points are there for him and not for Courtland Sutton. Yes. Touchdowns obviously rule everything. But no, there's some realness to this breakout here for him. I think he's always going to be a little bit frustrating as an individual player, an up and down guy. He's going to drop the ball. He's going to make mistakes at the catch point. He's not always going to be where he needs to be in terms of zone coverage, but when you can get him isolated in the right matchups, I think he can beat man coverage. I think the route running is pretty good for him. So I like what I've seen from Franklin so far. I'd like to see more of Bryant because I think they need more of that zone beating sort of player in this offense in addition to what they get from Sutton and Franklin. But I still think Franklin has some ability as well and shouldn't just be totally cast aside here.
Well, and I think in a different way, we talked about Justin Herbert and how good he was as a quarterback and how good that helps raise the whole boat of the Chargers pass catchers. We talk about it with Dak Prescott. Bo Nix hasn't been great this season in his second year, but he also hasn't been awful. He's an ascending quarterback.
Yeah,
he's got a long leash. He's got a good play caller in Sean Payton. And I think you're starting to see the offense have to evolve a little bit more. Pat Bryant was talking about being on the field and embracing that role of being a blocker and liking when the running backs is called his direction. The feeling for Denver is it was a little bit of a rocky start to figure it out. There was a lot of just difference on the team, right? 2 new running backs. You're trying to integrate Evan Ingram. You got Pat Bryant. But as they continue to progress through the season, offensive line still doing a good job. Bo Nix getting better weekly. This is an offense that I think a player like Franklin, you might look up and towards the end of the season, he's right there in that flex kind of range because the offense is good. Everyone's got their sort of isolated individual role. I like how these pieces are put together. I like they're not the highest end pieces, but I think for this team with this quarterback, like this is a good collection of guys for this iteration of Denver Broncos team in 25.
Matchup definitely tougher this week in Houston to face the Texans, but they get the Raiders in week 10. So that might be another week to go back to Franklin or some of these ancillary pieces there. Real quick, just because you mentioned your boy Kayshon Boutte, I always feel like I got to find a good Kayshon Boutte stat.
Oh yeah, we got to talk Boutte.
And I mean, he's because again, it's like the theme player of the data dump after our conversation from this past week. Do you know Kayshon Boutte? There's 36 wide receivers who have averaged over 10 half PPR points per game. He ranks dead last in targets per route run. He has only been targeted on 13.8% of his routes, and yet he keeps getting it done. It just keeps not really mattering. Like,
he's a gamer. Again.
Yeah,
he's a gamer, baby.
I mean, he's a gamer, and him and Drake May just have the best downfield connection in the NFL. I truly cannot say this. The one thing I definitely, when I was wrong about Kayshon Boutte at the beginning of the year, was that I didn't realize Drake May was going to be the best quarterback in football. Like, if you had told me Drake May was going to be the best quarterback in football, maybe I would have been a little bit more open-minded Kayshon Boutte from a fantasy standpoint. But like their connection, I mean, Boutte's been awesome this year. You cannot overstate the fact that like Drake May and him are just on fire on those downfield routes. So there might be some regression at some point because he's not getting that many targets. I mean, he's only had, I think, more than 5 targets once all season. But so he's going to have a floor game at some point, but it ain't slowing down anytime recently, man. He just keeps on getting it done.
Well, it's because we got to deal with Mac Hollins taking like 6 to 8 targets a week. Can we stop
7
doing that? Stop throwing to 13. I mean, Drake May is awesome, but he's throwing it to too many people right now. We need to consolidate this a little bit. Come on, Drake.
Well, after they threw to him 7 times and he caught all 7 of those for a team high 89 yards, did Mac Hollins, I think you can maybe wait another few weeks before you get that done. Speaking of consolidated and some of these spread out offenses, which is a great transition from the Broncos to the Patriots to then all the way to the Colts here, because this is one of those very crowded target trees. But, man, Josh Downs is starting to turn it on in critical areas. He has been a first down and a touchdown machine right now. Some of these stats I think people would find surprising. Number one, to the first down point, 35% of Josh Downs' targets this year have come on 3rd or 4th down, and he ranks 2nd in first downs per route run on those later downs among wide receivers with 120-plus routes on the year. Downs leads the Colts over the last 3 weeks with 5 red zone targets, despite the fact, Ray, that he missed one of those games with a concussion. His 29.4% red zone target share is a top 16 mark, again, despite the fact that he missed a week in that span. Downs is not going to be a full-time player for this offense. He's never going to play all the snaps because they like to get in those heavier sets. They're a really good run team, and especially because they keep blowing away some of these bad teams among this insane offense. He's not going to be on the field when they're trying to close those games out. So if we are still going to rely on Josh Downs from a fantasy perspective as a kind of bye-week fill-in starter, or if you want to still get excited about him, the way that you're looking at it is that they need to weaponize him on critical down and distances, and especially what they've done with him in the red zone, Ray. I love this. I was talking about this with Nate earlier today on Football 301, where they're this perfect blend of offense where they run the football extremely well. They take these deep shots to like Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman. I saw you posting about him today. Obviously, they get Tyler Warren maximized. But then when they get in close, despite the fact they have this big first-round tight end, they have Alec Pierce, who is a hulking freak athlete and X receiver. They have Michael Pittman, who did dunk on a dude this past week, and he's a big receiver. But instead of going to all those guys, they go to little old Josh Downs in the slot, and they get him isolated in man coverage with some of their funky looks there, and he's just popping in these touchdowns left and right. So I think that's really good to see for some of the folks that want to still be excited about Josh Downs and potentially want to start him in the right matchups here during the bye weeks.
I mean, just I'm looking at something, and it's very pro Josh Downs right now, but just off the rip, he's probably the 3rd option in the passing attack in Indianapolis behind Pittman. But when you think about it, he's like 3rd option, right? But when I'm looking at the usage for these guys, it is literally the little dots on Trinity are all damn near overlapping. It's Pittman, it's Tyler Warren, and Josh Downs. They're all within I think Pittman is like a 6.8. Downs is like at a 6.2. Like they're all right there, and they're all above the regression line, which shows that this offense is just outstanding. And when I'm looking, I don't need to see anything else. Then I went to go say, okay, well, let me go look at his game log. You look at the last 3 weeks for Josh Downs. Sure, last week's 3 target, 3 reception day. It doesn't, nothing to get too excited about, but he's utilized in the right areas. He scores a touchdown. Week before that, 6 catches on 7 targets, 42 yards, and he scores a touchdown. Week before that, 6 receptions, 8 targets, 54 yards. Didn't score, but if you got 6 catches, 54 yards, you feel okay, right? You're okay on the week. The player did not bust for you. It's a great, great offensive environment, a great situation. It's an offense where even all 4 of those pass catchers, while you could say Warren and Downs sort of cannibalize each other on some short area targets, if you watch the games and the way that they're deployed, it's not the same. Like this is, I want to bet on good situations, and I'm just looking at the dots, the usage that correlates to fantasy points, and he's right there. Like you want him. It may not feel like it because he's not the 1. He may not be the 2 in this offense, but the offense is great. His role is solidified, and the way that he's using them, even in limited opportunity, if he's going to be able to pick up first downs, move the chains, score touchdowns, be in a position to do that, this is why we said, I think week 2 on the show, when people were like, oh man, is Josh Downs dead? Is he dead now that Tyler Warren is a thing? And I remember us saying, no, he's not dead. It may be a little volatile, but now it's starting to be a little more consistent where it's not volatile and you kind of know what you're getting with Josh Downs. So I'm totally fine with this offense, man.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like you said, such a good offensive environment. They're on pace to be one of the best offenses of all time. I know that sounds crazy, but like from a points per drive, scores per drive, they're one of the most efficient offenses in NFL history right now, which is crazy to say, but it's the reality of it. So you want these kind of ancillary pieces. Like, yeah, we know Jonathan Taylor is one of the best running backs in fantasy. We know Michael Pittman's set and forget it. We know, that Tyler Warren is the top 5 tight end rest of the season. But these guys like Pittman, these guys like Downs and Pierce, they're also players who can help you in the right matchup. And Ray Garvin, do you happen to know what their Week 9 matchup is?
I saw it, but I can't. Who do they play in Week 9? Who do they play?
They play the Pittsburgh Steelers. So
somebody's
gonna get something in that game. It could be Downs, it could be Pierce. If you need the right help in your matchups with those guys, it's a good offense. Look for some of those ancillary players. All right, we are going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Travis Hunter and another wide receiver who's trending up. We'll get into that right after this. All right, we are back. I cannot wait to get into your 4th data point here, Ray Garvin. Let's hear it.
Oh, Matt Harmon. We have to. Well, I put in the show notes, we cannot not talk about Travis Hunter, okay? This is, I can give you all the week 7 stats, right? 86% of the snaps, 14 targets, 101 yards, touchdown, broke out. We know he ran more routes, 49 to BTJ's 38. He gets the Raiders here in Week 9. They're not a good passing defense. They don't do a good job generating pressure. They're allowing 225 passing yards per game. All of this stuff, right? We had a week off to sit, to marinate, to take this information, to look at the matchups, and to look at the other pieces and the components of this offense. And throughout that week, we've continued to hear about Brian Thomas Jr. and what he's doing with catchable targets from Trevor Lawrence, what his faults are in the offense, and a sprinkle of leak rumor information about him potentially being on the move. Liam Cohen has already come out to say, we're not moving Brian Thomas Jr. I saw you today talking about Travis Hunter, right? You wrote a piece on Yahoo Fantasy about Travis Hunter, and I'll let you talk about that in a second, but the setup is very simple. Like, is this the start of the new wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville, Travis Hunter? And that doesn't mean that Brian Thomas Jr. isn't going to be great. Doesn't mean that Brian Thomas Jr. isn't going to be awesome. But do you feel in your analysis, when you look at this team, what they've done, where they are, like this is what we are in line for this player that they spent a lot of money, spent a lot of capital to move up to draft this kid? they're in the race right now, right? The AFC South looks like it's going to go to Indianapolis, but Jacksonville is right there in the hunt for a playoff spot. Do we see it in week 9, Matt? Like, I really just want to have a ball talk conversation with you today. Does it happen for Travis Hunter in week 9?
Week 9 is going to be obviously a great matchup with the Raiders. That helps, as you mentioned. I really do think we are. Here's the thing. There's been so much, I think, like over analysis, quite frankly, from some people that I really like and respect, on the Travis Hunter, like lack of usage on offense and just kind of criticizing what they have or have not gotten out of him so far. And the reason that I feel that is because, to me, I think you can map a pretty clear but slow ramp up for him over the last few weeks. In my opinion, it started in weeks 4 and 5, where in the early part of the season, he was truly running like the Mickey Mouse route tree. A lot of screens, and I put it as he was getting used to and adjusting to running routes at the NFL level. It just wasn't fully there for him, which, by the way, is not surprising. He's a guy who was more of a full-time corner than a full-time wide receiver in college. And even when he was on the field, it was a very stripped-down offense at Colorado. Special prospect, but not like Emeka Egbuka or Tetero and McMillan or Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison and Roma Dunze from last year. Guys that have been wide receivers at big programs, running routes forever, okay? This is just a different thing. So in the first few weeks, that's what it was. Weeks 4 and 5, I think you saw more downfield usage with him from a route perspective. Targets, little hit or miss, but you saw him running truly more downfield routes. And then I think after taking well to those plays, like Ray, that's when we saw his route participation jump up. 88% and 90% in the 2 games before the bye, where he'd averaged 71% the week before. So to me, it's not just that he had the production in the game that we just last saw. I think you can also see where they were ramping him up to an offensive perspective. And the reality is here right now, he's been their best separator. He's also been their most consistent catcher of the football. He's the only wide receiver that doesn't have a double-digit drop rate on the season. And you can see where they're scheming him plays to be the first read. Shoot, even the first play of the game against the Rams, he is clearly the number one in the progression, and Trevor Lawrence just kind of comes off it because there's a free rusher in his face, and he takes the sack. Lawrence said, I probably should have threw it, but still, there's a damn linebacker coming in and about to smack him in the face. What are you going to do? So I think, yes, we're trending towards this. Like, he's going to be the top guy coming out of the bye. Liam Cohen said to the media before the bye, or during the bye, that, yeah, we've got to get our best 11 on the field every single time, no questions asked. To me, Ray, Travis Hunter is very clearly one of their best 11 players on offense, and I think it has the chance to be their best pass catcher down the stretch.
Yeah, and I agree too. I fully on board, lockstep with you. I do agree, and I know that a lot of people, they don't want to hear this, and you see what a player like Brian Thomas was able to do last season. Like, Liam Cohen didn't pick him, right? I'm not saying that makes him bad. I'm not saying any of that stuff, right? This was a Trent Baalke pass regime sort of decision that they picked Brian Thomas Jr. at the back of the first, middle of the first last year. Liam Cohen and Gladstone, they came in and they gave up this stuff for this player. And you're seeing Jacksonville Jaguar greats say, like, this should be the one in this offense. You're seeing the flashes, and even versus the Rams, if you look at the target distribution by quarter, it wasn't like he just got it all once Brian Thomas went out. They had nobody else to throw to. I mean, The first 2 quarters, the first half, I think Brian Thomas had 4 targets to Hunter's 3. They had the same amount of air yards. Travis Hunter just didn't catch the ball. He had no receptions in the first half of that game. And then the third quarter, they started to prioritize him more and more. You see the special talent that he possesses. I do think this is the spot here in week 9 where you start to really see that turnover or that takeover transition and translate to fantasy points. And I know a lot of people have been waiting for this moment. And it's unfortunate that it feels like it's happening at the expense of Brian Thomas Jr. But I'll just say this, BTJ is still getting opportunity. Okay. It's not like they're not throwing him the ball. Okay. So if he could just hang on to it and convert on some of that opportunity, he will be fine too. But this Cohen offense, I believe it is relying on 2 guys being out there, being reliable. And I'd venture to say they don't want that to be Hunter and Parker Washington. They would love for it to be Thomas. But I do think starting in week 9, we start to see those fantasy points materialize for Hunter in this role.
Yeah, I had a really good conversation with Travis Holmes, who covers the team for Big Cat Country over the I think last week, talking about these wide receiver drops. And his point was just, and this is something I've kind of hinted at, but he put it in a really good way, that this offense is just so different than what all of these guys really have played in previously. If you look at like what Doug Peterson's offense was, it's a lot more like RPOs and more on the outside, kind of these static routes. That's why they've had so many of these motion mistakes, like the penalties and things of that nature. De'Ami Brown has never been an over the middle player. Parker Washington obviously played in Peterson's offense. Brian Thomas Jr. played in Doug Peterson's offense. Like it's everybody's going through a massive transition here, and you've seen some of the flaws of that. And like Liam Cohen said himself, I love the videos the Jags have been putting out that he has made mistakes. He was like taking accountability in front of the whole team. Like, guys, I messed up here. I got to call a better, like, I love that. I just really am bought into this ecosystem being good in the long run. And I think that can extend to Brian Thomas Jr. I am as excited as anybody to see Travis Hunter get the post-bye rookie bump. And I do think that's coming. I think he could be one of those wide receivers that's really impactful down the stretch. But I just want to encourage people too that, like, while this whole year might end up going down as a lost year for Brian Thomas, I don't think they should give up on him. I don't think they should trade him. I think they should continue to feed into him and find ways that he can make an impact in this offense, because he's clearly good. Like, to what degree good is he? I think we're still figuring that out. But he was very productive last year in the right role, and I think in the right role he can be productive for this team in the future.
Can I just want to say he was very good in college too, right? He was very good in college. But the one on that LSU team was Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
That was the one,
true.
right? I'm not saying Hunter is Neighbors. Brian Thomas was awesome at LSU. There was no doubt you needed to stop number 8 on that LSU team before number 11. That's all I'm saying.
And nobody wanted to hear this when I pointed it out late last year. And I wasn't using it as like a, hey, this means Brian Thomas is secretly bad. But it took basically everybody else in that offense getting hurt before he really got alpha level target work. Now, he was great with it, but it is part of the story. And I think that the reality is, if both of these guys can be good, it's good news for both of them. That's what we want. We want both of these guys breaking out, and we need Trevor Lawrence to come along for the ride. We should also state the obvious there that we need T-Law to pick that damn thing up on his own.
Yes.
One guy who is definitely trending up as a wide receiver. We're thinking Travis Hunter could be, but this guy, I don't think it's being talked about enough. DeVonta Smith has been awesome in real life and in fantasy football of late. Over the last 3 weeks, Ray, he ranks 7th in team air yard share among wide receivers, 5th in team target share, 2nd in yards per route at 3.5, 4th in first downs per route, and 9th in fantasy points per game. And again, I don't think people are talking about this enough. In my opinion, per my eyeballs, I think he's been the best Eagles offensive skill position player this year. I think he's been better than A.J. Brown wire to wire. Saquon Barkley's obviously been fine, but he hasn't been as productive as he could be because he plays running back and the offensive line's been a mess. Had a great game last week. Of course, I think he's on the right track. But the guy who's been every week available out there on the field and consistently putting up good film is DeVonta Smith, and the targets are starting to go his way. And I kind of love some of these wrinkles that the Eagles offense have been showing. Under center, play action, shot plays. That's really conducive to DeVonta Smith's skill set. And per Fantasy Pros, they have one of the 5 easiest rest of season schedules for wide receivers. Green Bay, Detroit, Dallas, Chicago, Chargers, Raiders, Commanders, Bills, Commanders. Like, that's what the Eagles are looking at right now. There's some good matchups there for DeVonta Smith, a guy that is playing like a wide receiver 1, real life and in fantasy.
I love the Slim Reaper. I love DeVonta Smith. Big fan of him when he was coming out of Alabama. Loved him early in Philadelphia. They bring in A.J. Brown, and he's just operated in this number 2 role. But he's one of the few wide receiver 2s that have like true, he could be a wide receiver 1 just about anywhere else. And if something were to happen with the primary on the team, a la T. Higgins, we've seen George Pickens do that. He's got the capability to not just step in and fill in for that one, but to have his own type of upside as well. I mean, if you're just watching, A.J. Brown is still awesome when they get him the ball. He's huge. He's a tank out there playing wide receiver, but there's something about Smith's game. He's continuing to get better. He's continuing to get better. This looks like the best wide receiver on Philadelphia. I mean, for whether it's sideline catches, the downfield tracking ability, they could get it to him in the short game. The only thing that you worry about is you're like, are they going to throw the ball this week? But they're doing that. Like, this is when I'm looking at the overall usage for Philadelphia in 2025, it looks eerily similar to 2024. Dallas Goedert's in the same usage range as he's always been in, but the big flip, A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith have flipped. Like, where DeVonta Smith usually sits behind A.J. Brown, a little bit lower, like they flip-flop. Smitty's leading the way in overall usage for that team. A.J. Brown is right after him. It's this is quietly here in year 5. Like, he's finally like that grown man NFL wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like, he's evolved into that. And you got to be pretty damn excited about what you're seeing from Smitty.
Yeah, I've made this point a lot, but A.J. Brown was number 1 in success rate versus man coverage and reception perception last season. You know who's number 2? DeVonta Smith. So there's not some big gap between these two players. Like, that gap kind of closed last year on film, and now I just think Smith right now is playing at a higher level. So he's 6th in the NFL in receiving yards. He has 430 receiving yards the last 4 weeks, was just behind Jamar Chase. Like, he's been balling out, and I know sometimes you can sense when this isn't, kind of the consensus hasn't caught up to this yet, because I do obviously rankings here for Yahoo. We do it through the Fantasy Pros tool. And when I log in on Monday night or Tuesday morning to do my next week rankings, it's like, all right, start with expert consensus. And one of my first moves at wide receiver is, all right, let me go ahead and pull DeVonta Smith up into the top 10, because like he's not high enough.
He ain't there.
He's not high enough.
Yeah.
He's not there, and he needs to be there. So definitely shout out to DeVonta Smith. He is definitely trending the right direction. Really interesting dynasty player to consider too, but that's a separate conversation for another time.
Who do the Eagles have this week? Who do the Eagles have this week, real quick?
They got the Packers. Packers this week. This week. So, well, they're on bye. Excuse me, they're on bye. Next game is Green Bay. So
next game versus Green Bay. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
sneaky bye maybe. Sneaky bye on the bye week. Sneaky bye on the bye week.